Okay, let's have a look at the crime of treason, particularly during the early modern period. The crime of treason is literally an act of rebellion against the monarch, a king or a queen. And we find that the crime of treason is particularly frequent during the reign of the Tudors. Why is this the case? The Tudors, Henry VII, had seized power during the Wars of the Roses, so therefore for some people, and for some very rich and important people, the Tudors were not the legitimate rulers of England, and as a consequence of that there were many attempts to overthrow them. There were many rebellions during their period on the thrones of England. Okay. Another thing that makes the situation more precarious or dangerous is the fact that Henry VIII, of course, breaks away from the Catholic Church in Rome, which means that there are a series of Catholic attempts to attack the royal family of England. And the most famous attack is not during the Tudor period, of course, but during the reign of the Stuarts, the first of the Stuarts, James I, who had come to the throne of England after Elizabeth I died. And many Catholics in England wanted him and welcomed him as the new king, expecting him to be much more lenient towards the Catholics in England. However, this doesn't prove the case, and so a group of Catholic noblemen attempt to overthrow the king, to kill him, and they intend to replace him with his daughter Elizabeth, who would be a Catholic ruler of England. And this is, of course, the Gunpowder Plot, which comes to fruition in 1605. On the 5th of November, they attempt to blow the king and the whole Houses of Parliament up in this conspiracy. We know, of course, that it fails. And as a consequence of the failure of this conspiracy, all of those people who are still alive and who planned and attempted to kill the king are given the harshest possible punishment for treason, which of course, as you know, is being hung, drawn and quartered. This is designed to be deliberately the most violent, the most appalling punishment you could imagine. Why? Because they want to deter anybody who would consider or think about trying to overthrow them. I'm sure you know the grisly details of being hung, drawn and quartered. You are drawn to a place of execution where you're strung up on the gallows until you are semi-conscious. Then you are brought down, and then you are disemboweled, your heart is burnt, your private parts are burnt in front of you, and then your body is finally cut into 4 quarters to ensure that you have no chance of ever going on to the afterlife. Deliberately terrible, to deter anyone from trying to overthrow the king. If you are a member of the nobility and you are charged with treason and found guilty of treason, you do not have to be hung, drawn and quartered. Instead, you're given the more lenient punishment of being beheaded. The crime of treason continues throughout the ages, although being hung, drawn and quartered is more or less confined to the early modern period. The last person to be found guilty of treason and executed for that was a guy called William Joyce, nicknamed Lord Haw-Haw, who was a spokesperson for the Nazi regime during the Second World War. And he is arrested after the war, taken to the Tower of London. He's also the last person to be imprisoned in the Tower of London, and he is executed. He is hung in 1946, the last person to be executed for treason.